You walk into a room and immediately feel every eye on you. Your heart races. Your hands sweat. You want to disappear into the walls. But here is what nobody tells you. You are not shy. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are protecting yourself from a danger that once was real. Let me show you something most people will never understand about themselves. The discomfort you feel when someone really looks at you is not about today. It is about yesterday. It is about the child who learned that being seen meant being hurt. This is not about social anxiety. This is about survival. Architecture. You were the child who could not hide. Maybe you were the sensitive one, the one who cried too easily, the one whose emotions were always written across your face like an open book that everyone could read, but no one wanted to protect. Or maybe you were the talented one, the one who stood out, the one who made others feel small just by existing, so they made sure you paid for it. Or maybe you were the different one, the quiet one, the loud one, the smart one, the slow one. It does not matter which label you carried. What matters is this: you learned that visibility was dangerous. You learned that when people noticed you, bad things happen. A parent who used your emotions as ammunition. A sibling who resented your presence. A teacher who made an example out of you. A group of kids who decided you were the perfect target for their own unprocessed pain. And so you did what any intelligent organism does when faced with repeated threat. You adapted. You made yourself small. You learned to control your face, your voice, your energy. You became a master of camouflage, blending into backgrounds, never taking up too much space, never shining too bright. This was not weakness. This was genius. Your nervous system was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was keeping you alive in an environment where being noticed meant being attacked. But here is the tragedy. The threat is gone, but the defense remains. Let me tell you what really happens inside you when someone pays attention to you now. Your body does not register it as curiosity. It does not register it as interest. It registers it as threat assessment. Because once upon a time, attention was the warning signal. Attention meant you were about to be criticized, mocked, interrogated, or invaded. Attention meant someone was about to use what they saw against you. So now, when someone looks at you with genuine interest, when someone compliments you, when someone focuses on you in a meeting or asks you a direct question, your body does not feel flattered. It feels exposed. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing shallows. Your palms sweat. Your mind goes blank. This is not you being awkward. This is your autonomic nervous system screaming, danger. You have been spotted. Execute evasion protocol. And you do. You deflect. You minimize. You redirect attention away from yourself as fast as possible. You make a joke. You change the subject. You shrink. Not because you are insecure, but because your body remembers what your mind has tried to forget. Let me name something for you that you have probably never had words for. Spotlight trauma. This is what happens when a child is repeatedly exposed to harmful attention. Not neglect, not invisibility, but the opposite. Too much focus, the wrong kind of focus. There are different versions of this trauma, but they all share one core wound. Your visibility became weaponized. Some of you had the interrogator parent, the one who watched you like a hawk, waiting for you to make a mistake, the one who turned every dinner into a performance review, who asked you questions not to connect, but to correct, who made you feel like you were constantly under surveillance, constantly being evaluated, constantly failing. Some of you had the jealous sibling or the resentful peer, someone who could not stand that you had something they did not. Talent, beauty, intelligence, parental favor, and so they made it their mission to punish you for it, to mock you, to diminish you, to make sure you knew that standing out was a crime. Some of you had the invasive adult, the one who did not respect boundaries, who asked inappropriate questions, who commented on your body, who treated your inner world like public property, who made you feel like you had no right to privacy, no right to keep parts of yourself hidden. And some of you had the unpredictable audience. You never knew which version of attention you would get. Sometimes you were praised. Sometimes you were attacked. The inconsistency was the torture. You learned that visibility itself was a gamble you could not afford to take. All of these experiences taught you the same lesson. Being seen is dangerous. And so you built what psychologists call adaptive invisibility. You learned to exist in rooms without fully arriving. You learned to be present without being perceived. You mastered the art of deflection, of blending, of never giving anyone enough material to use against you. This was brilliant. This kept you safe, but it also kept you alone. Here's the part that will hurt. You are still living as if the threat is active. You are still operating from the same defensive playbook you wrote when you were 8 years old, when you were 12, when you were 16. The rules that kept you safe then are the bars of your cage now. You avoid opportunities because they require visibility. You do not apply for the job. You do not share your work. You do not speak up in meetings, not because you have nothing to say, but because saying something means being seen. And being seen still feels like volunteering for harm. You sabotage relationships before they deepen because intimacy requires being known. Being known means someone has access to the real you. And the real you learned long ago, the version that gets hurt. You downplay your accomplishments. You hide your talents. You make yourself less interesting, less impressive, less alive than you actually are. Because somewhere deep in your nervous system, there is still a child who believes that if you are too much, someone will make you pay for it. And the cruelest part, you have internalized the gaze. You do not need other people to target you anymore. You target yourself. You criticize yourself before anyone else can. You shrink yourself before anyone asks you to. You reject yourself before anyone gets the chance. Because if you do it first, at least you are in control of the pain. This is what therapists call internalized oppression. The voice of the person who hurt you has become your own voice. The surveillance has become self-surveillance. The attack has become self-attack. You have become your own predator. Let me show you what this looks like in your adult life, because most people do not connect the dots. You are the person who freezes when someone asks you to talk about yourself. Not because you are boring, but because talking about yourself feels like handing someone a weapon. You are the person who feels physically uncomfortable when complimented. You smile. You say thank you. But inside, you are scanning for the trap. What do they want? What are they about to ask for? What is the cost of this attention? You are the person who hides your success. You do not post about your achievements. You do not celebrate your wins. Not out of humility, but out of fear that someone will resent you for them. You are the person who apologizes for existing, for taking up space, for having needs, for being in the way, even when you are not in the way, even when no one is bothered, because you learned that your presence was an imposition. You are the person who cannot accept help, who cannot be vulnerable, who cannot let anyone see you struggling, because being seen in weakness, you learned, is an invitation for exploitation. You are the person who over-prepares for everything, who rehearses conversations, who plans exit strategies, who never allows yourself to be spontaneous or unfiltered, because unpredictability means loss of control, and loss of control means danger. And you are exhausted, because living in a constant state of self-monitoring is not living, it is surviving. And you have been surviving for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to just exist. But here is what I need you to understand, and this is where everything shifts. The people who hurt you were not reacting to who you were. They were reacting to who they were not. The parent who interrogated you was not trying to help you improve. They were trying to control something, anything, a life that felt out of control. The sibling who resented you was not angry at your talent. They were angry at their own perceived inadequacy. The peer who mocked you was not responding to your difference. They were projecting their own fear of being different. You were not the problem. You were the mirror. And people who have not dealt with their own pain cannot stand to look in mirrors. So they break them. You learn to hate being noticed because the people around you could not handle what they saw when they looked at you. Not because there was anything wrong with what they saw, but because it reminded them of everything they were afraid to face in themselves. Your visibility triggered their shame, and they made you carry it. This is not your fault. This was never your fault. You were a child. You were not responsible for managing the emotional dysfunction of the adults and peers around you, but you tried. You tried by disappearing, by becoming smaller, by learning to hate the very things about yourself that should have been celebrated. You learn to see yourself through the eyes of people who were not capable of seeing clearly. So what happens now? Now, you have to do the hardest thing a human can do. You have to unlearn safety. You have to teach your nervous system that visibility no longer equals danger. That being seen does not mean being hurt. That taking up space is not a crime. This is not about positive thinking. This is not about affirmations. This is about rewiring threat response. Your body will not believe this just because your mind understands it. Your body needs proof. It needs evidence. It needs repeated experiences of being seen without being harmed. This is why you cannot think your way out of this. This is why all the logic in the world does not make the feeling go away, because the feeling is not coming from your thoughts. It is coming from your nervous system, and your nervous system only learns through experience. So you have to practice being visible in small, manageable doses. You have to let yourself be seen by safe people. You have to share something real and watch what happens when the world does not end. You have to let someone compliment you and resist the urge to deflect. You have to share your work even though your hands are shaking. You have to speak up in the meeting even though your heart is pounding. Not because it will feel good, but because each time you do it and survive, you are teaching your body a new truth. You are teaching it that attention is not always a threat, that visibility is not always dangerous, that you can be seen and still be safe. This is not healing through understanding. This is healing through repetition. But let me tell you what nobody says about this process. It will feel like betrayal. It will feel like you are betraying the child who learned to hide, the child who stayed small to stay safe, the child whose invisibility was the only power they had. When you start to let yourself be seen, part of you will panic. Part of you will scream, "What are you doing? You are breaking the rules. You are putting us in danger," and you will want to retreat. You will want to go back to the familiar prison of invisibility, because even though it is painful, at least it is predictable. This is normal. This is part of the process. You are not failing. You are grieving. You are grieving the loss of a defense mechanism that once saved your life. You are grieving the childhood you should have had, where being seen meant being loved, not targeted. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself feel the anger at the people who made you afraid of your own existence. Let yourself feel the sadness for the child who learned to hide their light. But do not let the grief stop you from stepping into visibility now, because here is the truth that will set you free. The child you were trying to protect by staying small does not need protection anymore. That child needed protection then. That child needed an adult to intervene, to shield them, to say, "You are not too much. You are not a problem. You are exactly right." But that adult never came. So you became your own protector. You protected yourself the only way you knew how, by disappearing. But you are not that child anymore. You are the adult now, and the adult version of you does not need to hide. The adult version of you has agency, has choices, has the ability to walk away from people who cannot handle your light, has the power to build a life around people who celebrate your visibility instead of punishing it. The rules that kept you safe as a child are the chains that bind you as an adult. Let me tell you what happens when you start to reclaim your visibility. At first, it feels terrifying. Every time someone looks at you, you will feel that old panic. Every time someone asks about you, you will feel that old urge to deflect. But slowly, something shifts. You start to notice that being seen does not always lead to pain. That some people look at you with curiosity, not judgment. That some people are genuinely interested, not waiting to attack. You start to notice that your visibility does not make people uncomfortable, that your presence is not an imposition, that you are allowed to take up space. And then, something even more profound happens. You start to realize that the people who matter do not want you small. The people worth knowing do not need you to shrink. They do not need you to hide. They do not need you to be less of who you are so they can feel like more of who they are. The right people are not threatened by your light. They are drawn to it. And when you start to let yourself be seen by these people, you begin to experience something you may have never felt before. The safety of being known. Not the performance of being perfect. Not the exhausting maintenance of being palatable, but the deep, soul-level relief of being seen for who you actually are, and not being punished for it. This is what you were searching for all along. Not invisibility, but safe visibility. You do not hate being noticed. You hate being noticed by the wrong people. You hate being noticed by people who use what they see as ammunition, by people who cannot celebrate you without resenting you, by people who make your existence about their insecurity. But those are not the only people in the world. There are people who will see you and feel grateful, who will notice your talent and want to amplify it, not diminish it, who will witness your sensitivity and want to protect it, not exploit it, who will recognize your difference and want to honor it, not erase it. These people exist, and you will never find them if you stay hidden. So here is what I want you to understand in your bones. Your visibility is not the problem. The people who could not handle it were the problem. You do not need to fix yourself. You do not need to become more confident, more outgoing, or comfortable with attention. You need to unlearn the lie that being seen is dangerous. You need to find the people who make being seen feel like coming home instead of going to war. You need to let yourself exist at full volume, in full color, without apologizing for the space you take up. Not because it is easy, but because you have already paid the price of invisibility, and it cost you everything. It cost you opportunities you did not take, relationships you did not pursue, versions of yourself you never allowed to exist, dreams you buried before they had a chance to breathe. You made yourself small, and the world did not get safer. It just got lonelier. So what if you tried something different? What if you let yourself be seen, really seen, and discovered that the danger you have been bracing for your entire life is not waiting on the other side? What if the thing you have been most afraid of is actually the thing that will set you free? Here is your final realization, the one that changes everything. Being targeted as a child was not evidence that you were wrong. It was evidence that you were powerful. Children who get targeted are not weak. They are threatening, not in a dangerous way, but in a disruptive way. They disrupt the status quo just by existing. They remind the people around them of everything they are afraid to feel, afraid to be, afraid to want. The sensitive child disrupts the family that has learned to numb. The talented child disrupts the family that has learned to settle. The authentic child disrupts the family that has learned to perform. You were not targeted because you were defective. You were targeted because you were awake in a room full of people who were asleep, and they needed you to go back to sleep. They needed you to stop feeling so much, achieving so much, being so much. Because your aliveness was a mirror that reflected their numbness, and they could not stand it. So they made you believe that the problem was you. But the problem was never you. The problem was that you were surrounded by people who had already given up on themselves, and your refusal to give up on yourself made them uncomfortable. This is the truth that will set you free. You do not hate being noticed. You hate being punished for being alive. And you have spent your entire life trying to solve this by making yourself less alive, by turning down the volume, by dimming the light, by becoming a version of yourself that is easier for other people to tolerate. But what if you stopped trying to be tolerable? What if you let yourself be undeniable instead? So here is my question for you, the one that will tell you everything you need to know about where you are in this process. When was the last time you let yourself be fully visible without apologizing for it? When was the last time you shared your truth without softening it, took up space without shrinking it, shined without dimming yourself for the comfort of others? If you cannot remember, then you are still living in the cage your childhood built. You are still protecting a child who no longer exists from a threat that is no longer active. And it is time to step out. Not because it is comfortable, not because it is easy, but because the alternative is spending the rest of your life hiding from a spotlight that you were always meant to stand in. You were always meant to be seen. You were always meant to take up space. You were always meant to be too much for the people who are not enough for you. This is not arrogance. This is liberation. So let yourself be noticed. Let yourself be seen. Let yourself exist at the volume you were born to exist at. And watch what happens when you stop protecting yourself from a danger that no longer exists. Watch what happens when you finally give yourself permission to be undeniably, unapologetically, unavoidably you. The child who learned to hide did what they had to do to survive. But you are not just surviving anymore. You are ready to live.